Hello there. Meta and Amazon axe diversity initiatives, joining US corporate rollback. So this is kind of good news. I don't think they are actually serious about this yet, but it seems as though quite a few American companies are deciding to roll back on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, or in other words, anti-West, anti-European, anti-straight white male, really, activism. They always try to make it about justice or fighting racism, but I disagree with the basic premise they have, which is the solution to past racism is future racism. I think that the solution to all racism is simply to stop being racist. Basically, what they do is they just don't hire or promote people who are straight, white, male, and prefer people who are from really other backgrounds, either part of the LGBT or women or people from minority groups, people who aren't Christians, so mainly Muslims, that sort of thing. They just advance those people and really talk a lot about how much they hate the sort of classical majority of white countries, which is, white people. And also how much they hate men, of course, straight men specifically. They don't have anything against gay men. And all of these initiatives are, funnily enough, not very popular with the people that they hate or with people who don't share their hatred. So they have had a lot of backlash. And now, with Donald Trump soon to be in the White House and really stopping all the policies that are keeping this afloat, because it has been proven many, many times that if you try and forcefully inject diversity, which is to say, hire people based on their identity instead of merit, then the results are not pretty. You don't really hire the best black trans woman for the job. What you do is you hire some sort of activist who happens to be black, trans, or whatever, and then they don't really do a very good job. You just need a meritocracy. It doesn't work to try and cherry pick people from diverse backgrounds. That's why we had so many accidents with Boeing. I've seen just recently, like this week, yet another close call. And that's why you have really the death of American entertainment, where nobody wants to consume it anymore. It's the same thing with so many companies we'll soon get to. And now Meta and Amazon, two giants really in global economy, axing their diversity programs, joining firms across corporate America that are rolling back hiring and training initiatives criticized by conservatives, citing legal and political risks. So like I said, it's because Trump is in the White House soon. And the move comes just days after Meta Platforms, the owner of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, said it was ending a fact-checking program criticized by President-elect Donald Trump and Republicans. What the fact-checking did is it didn't check facts, it checked political allegiance. So many things that turned out to be true, like the Hunter Biden laptop story, for example, were fact-checked false. And only after the fact, after the elections, if you remember, in 2020, they allowed to say that, no, this is actually true. The same happens with any story that is inconvenient or harmful to the Democrats. This sort of censorship is particularly one way, very partisan, and therefore, like I said, very unpopular with people who either just want free discourse or don't agree with you. So obviously they'd have a backlash. In a memo to staff about its decision, which affects hiring, supplier, and training efforts, Meta cited a shifting legal and policy landscape. Walmart and McDonald's are among the other companies to have made similar decisions regarding diversity efforts since Trump won re-election. In its memo to staff, which was first reported by Axios and confirmed by the BBC, Meta cited a Supreme Court ruling concerning race in college admissions, while also noting that the term DEI has become charged. A lot of these programs are just being renamed, incidentally. As for the ruling about DEI in college admissions, basically, you don't get to discriminate based on race or other immutable characteristics. In college admissions, this is what's supposed to be. It's not there yet, but this ruling is slightly moving us in that direction. The tech giant said it would continue to look for diverse staff, but end its current approach, which seeks to make selections from a pool of diverse candidates. So they're probably going to keep pushing for it, but perhaps not quite as vehemently. Maybe they'll allow a few white males to, get through straight ones, of course, because they already have the gay ones. In a December memo to employees, Amazon said it was winding down outdated programs and materials related to representation and inclusion. Rather than have individual groups build programs, we are focusing on programs with proven outcomes, and we also aim to foster a more truly inclusive culture. Candy Castleberry, Amazon's VP of Inclusive Experiences and Technology, wrote in the note, which was first reported by Bloomberg on Friday. Financial firms JP Morgan Chase and BlackRock also pulled out of groups focused on risks from climate change this week. Once again, these are all programs that have been kept afloat, kept alive by money, especially from the government and the banks, but also from BlackRock, really. And this is basically saying that it might not be as easy to provide cheap money in investments and loans to all the companies that are currently supported by DEI, because usually you either are not profitable if you go DEI, or you slowly lose profitability if you manage to hold on to your market share after becoming DEI as a company. And therefore, it's all about the big finance investing in it and pushing for it. And the moment that stops, you're going to see a massive backflow against DEI. Now, the moves are a sign of acceleration of a retreat that started 2 years ago, as Republicans ramped up attacks on firms such as BlackRock and Disney, accusing them of woke progressive activism and threatening political punishment. Incidentally, if you're talking about Disney, it's not just about their hiring practices, it's also about what they gave kids to see, which was a lot of LGBT stuff, gay stuff. And people said, well, you're not supposed to indoctrinate my kid into that. These are topics that are best left for parents to discuss their kids with as they see fit. And we just don't trust you anymore to, be a part of the kid's childhood. So that was a big backlash for Disney. As for BlackRock, like I said, they're the ones prescribing for everyone. Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, is famous for saying forced behaviors, right? Otherwise, you'll be financially impacted. So they're the ones prescribing DEI to the entire industry, and therefore there was a huge backlash, yes. Recent court decisions have bolstered critics of the programs, who said that they were discriminatory. The Supreme Court in 2023 struck down the right for private universities to consider race in admissions decisions. I don't understand why this is controversial at all. We just want everything to be about merit, without talking about all the other stuff like immutable characteristics, that's all. Another Court of Appeals ruling invalidated a NASDAQ policy that would have required companies listed on that stock exchange to have at least one woman, racial minority, or LGBTQ person on the board, or explain why not. You're in a country where half the people, more than half the people, are white. So is it that surprising that a lot of the time you have these, how to put it, not diverse as they call it, boards or executive boards? Honestly, if you have, I remember seeing a picture that was in news for this particular reason, for a controversy about DEI, a picture of a whole group of models, and they were basically all black female models, and it was called super diverse. And people pointed out that there was no diversity whatsoever, it was just one group, but it was diverse because they weren't white. So you are creating new meanings for the words diverse, racist, etc., that are often the opposite of what they originally meant. And that's literally why people are opposed to you, because you are doing the opposite of what we fought against in the civil rights movement. You're just using the terminology. So Meta said it was also ending its efforts to work with suppliers who are diverse, but will instead focus on small and medium-sized companies. It also plans to stop offering equity and inclusion training and instead offer programs that mitigate bias for all, no matter your background. So at least it seems to be a shift in the way that they actually formulate the language. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually going to stop being racist or sexist, but they may at least stop openly demonizing the groups of people they claim to have original sin. Meta declined to comment on the memo, news of which was immediately met with both criticism and celebration. I'm sitting back and enjoying every second of this, says conservative activist Robbie Starbuck, who has taken credit for successfully campaigning against the policies at companies such as Ford, John Deere, and Harley Davidson, all of which will be in the list of companies that have rolled back DEI. LGBTQ advocacy group Human Rights Campaign said workplace inclusion policies helped to attract and retain top staff and had been directly tied to long-term business growth. That's literally a lie. Those who abandon these commitments are shirking their responsibility to their employees, consumers, and shareholders. Rishon Shawnee Hawkins, the senior director of the HRC Foundation's Workplace Equity Program, said, "I'm going to point out once again that literally all of the companies that do this DEI thing, the moment people find out about it and are impacted by those policies, then they refuse to do business with you en masse. This is not something that's popular. This is not something that is profitable. This is nothing enforced through investment companies like BlackRock." Meta's move comes just days after the tech giant said it was ending a fact-checking program criticized by Trump and Republicans and elevated conservatives to key leadership positions. In short, they are trying to slightly reverse things in the hope that it will prevent a backlash from both the public as well as Trump, now that there's wind in the sails of the half the country that they hated and abused so far. Now, this is from 2024, September 23, so a couple of months back. From Retail Dive, no, not all companies are abandoning diversity, equity, and inclusion. Here's why. And essentially saying that while high-profile backlash caused some businesses to roll back the diversity initiatives, the vast majority end up sticking with DEI, in part because it's key to growth. Now, the entire article is essentially by a DEI activist and trying to argue that it's inherently profitable and good to use DEI in hiring and promoting people, as well as in messaging. They don't really give any reason other than supposedly it creates a better environment for the people who work there, therefore they become more productive and your business flourishes. However, they don't bring any proof of this, and honestly, I don't think there's any evidence of it in general. What I did see is, like I said, cheap money in loans and investments to people who promote DEI, which is why people are sticking with it, or at least stuck with it, for the duration of 2024. Now you see, let's quote from the article. "An increasingly tenuous environment for any company or human resource department aiming to assemble a dynamic workforce and leadership team," according to coverage from the sister publication HR Dive. As a result, many companies are scrutinizing their DEI policies, and most are sticking with them. That's in December 2023. Survey by the Conference Board of nearly 200 Chief Human Resources Officers found unanimous support for maintaining, if not intensifying, DEI efforts into 2024, with 63% actively seeking to further diversify their workforce. I'm going to point out that this is not the shareholders, this is not the CEOs, the executives, this is the Chief Human Resources Officers. So the people who are most likely to be cut off in the case that diversity is going to be rolled back. These are the people in danger of being fired. So obviously they want to keep claiming that they are necessary and that you shouldn't fire them. And also that it's totally profitable to keep us working, guys, honest. I don't believe you. So it says here, because companies have diverse stakeholders, notice the WEF, World Economic Forum language here, stakeholders, including employees, customers, and shareholders, and because it's their business to be profitable, it's not just acceptable but necessary for them to question their DEI program's effectiveness and evolve them as necessary, according to Diana Scott, who leads the nonprofit US Human Capital Center. In all, though, some 90% of those working with the conference board remain committed to DEI. Most organizations are trying to stay the course because they want to create an inclusive, diverse, vibrant culture in the organization, because they know that it contributes to employee engagement, which contributes to employee productivity, which contributes to bottom line business results. You don't do DEI because you're trying to be woke, you do DEI because it's actually serving your business. No, you're doing it because you want to be an activist. While social media provocateur Robbie Starbuck has been taking credit for most of the recent high-profile cases of what he calls woke companies scaling back or ending the DEI programs, which is silly. It's not one activist, it's general backlash from the public. The companies themselves are not stating that. Of course they won't, because the media is still very much pro-diversity, while the public is not. So companies are stuck between a rock and a hard place, where basically if you state that you are abandoning DEI, then the media is going to smear you. On the other hand, if you keep going with DEI, then the public will not do business with you. So essentially they have to quietly roll back enough so that the public forgets about them, while trying to maintain as much as possible and not make any headlines about it, so they're not smeared and lose the funding from BlackRock and other DEI investors. So Tractor Supply, for example, declined to comment for this story, and the other brands didn't return multiple requests for comment. All were asked if Starbucks was behind their policy change. Of course they won't say that. The reluctance likely stems from Starbucks' position as a political agitator with maximal views, whose frothy approach doesn't comport with sober business decisions, experts said. I don't think so. I think my explanation makes far more sense, because it has a lot more to do with the economy, with the actual impact that such decisions have on your business. Like I said, if you keep going full steam ahead of DEI, the public will punish you with not buying your stuff. And if you try and backtrack loudly, then the media will have you for lunch. They're saying this is an extreme activist who's actually profiting from his activism. A lot of activists profit from their activism, especially on the left, where all the money is from investments and where you get a backwind for your activism on social media, because the platforms all have censorship against and sort of highlighting off efforts for DEI and censorship against DEI. They're saying that most are not abandoning DEI. What we do know is that some companies are adjusting the language, or if they have a program supporting young professionals in their company, instead of stating that this is benefiting a specific group, they're expanding it. So like I said, they're renaming their efforts, but keep going as much as they can, until, of course, all of the funding disappears. Now, I want to go and talk about which companies are trying to do exactly what I just said. So companies turning away from DEI, at least in appearance-wise. Meta, almost immediately after announcing new content rules that allow users to abuse LGBTQ plus people. I don't think so. It's just you are not censored. If you criticize them, they're no longer quite as much of a protected group. So they still will have probably more protection than other groups. You can say the exact same things that you can't say about LGBTQ plus against people who are white or straight or male or Christian. It might maybe Jewish if you happen to be Muslim or black, but the protections, the special privileges that they enjoy are slightly curtailed, that's all. Meta announced that it would be ending all of its major DEI programs effective immediately. The company behind Facebook, Instagram, and Threads sent out an internal memo obtained by Axios, which will affect both hiring and training practices, as well as its decisions on which suppliers to work with. The change includes completely axing Meta's DEI team. The company's chief diversity officer, Maxine Williams, will enter a new role focused on accessibility and engagement. So notice she's not fired. Accessibility and engagement is just slightly less political language for the work she's doing. Instead of prioritizing partnering with diverse businesses, Meta will focus our efforts on supporting small and medium-sized businesses, power much of our economy. Now, supporting small and medium-sized businesses is capitalist language, essentially. The idea that large corporations are monopolies that strangle the economy and enforce their political will on an unwilling populace is very much a right-wing idea right now. And this is basically trying to spin the language to try and prevent backlash, that's all. Instead of inclusion-based efforts, the company will be creating programs that focus on how to apply fair and consistent practices that mitigate bias for all, no matter your background. Once again, conservative language. Meta will also be ending its representation goals, which Vice President of Human Resources Janelle Gale claimed can create the impression that decisions are being made based on race or gender, adding, "While this has never been our practice, we want to eliminate any impression of it. This has been their practice, and they're just trying to gaslight you." McDonald's is the same. You have Walmart, Molson Coors, Ford Motor, John Deere, Lowe's, and Harley Davidson, Brown-Forman, Tractor Supply, Toyota Motor. A lot of companies are doing this. And essentially, you're going to see this experiment in trying to just keep a low profile for now, until there is once again a Democrat in the White House. because it might cost them. If they actually keep going with this, if the backlash is strong enough, you might even get legislation to try and harm businesses that are discriminating against specific people, which really should have been illegal from the start, but they under the guise of fixing historical injustice and positive discrimination. So in short, to try and fix the discrimination of the past, they have managed to, under the radar, be very, very racist and sexist in hiring practices and in messaging. And now they are afraid. Very simple. I don't think that people will be fooled by this. There has been an attempt to rename DEI to Bridge, for those who don't know. That's the new acronym for the entire program. And they're also just trying to keep the policies but name them whatever it is individually, it seems. Where basically they try and claim that our activism is now against all biases, not necessarily against the privileged protected groups. None of these efforts are real, in my opinion, and you can see that the people who were in charge of being racist and sexist are not fired. Instead, they're just moved to a new department named something less provocative. Is this going to work? Is this going to prevent the backlash? Maybe temporarily. I think once people realize that nothing has changed, they will resume all efforts to boycott these companies if they are even fooled in the first place. I know that from being a bit more involved with the video game space, people there are very much jaded by the experience so far, and they're really reluctant to try and give another chance to these companies. They are mostly sticking with companies that are very explicitly rejecting all DEI. And you can also just see visually in the way that these companies comport themselves, the product that they put out, how they advertise it, specifically if they stick to advertising using pretty much only the gay weird stuff like you had with which car company was it that had a very, very strange, very sort of gay trans feeling commercial with no car. That was absolutely silly. If you keep that kind of image, then nobody's going to be fooled at all. If they actually try and revert to a more traditional messaging, it might work temporarily, but honestly, they think we're stupid. And that's the problem. They think we're much, much more stupid than we actually are. They think that they can sort of sneak it by us and just normalize it by hammering it every day until you're too tired and you just accept this new normal. And I think that this has worked in the past when times were better, when the economy was not as bad, and when people weren't as tired of it. But it has limits, and what they've done is they've hammered in a very large, consistent change in a very short amount of time. And as a result of all of this, people are at the end of the tether. They have no more patience for it. And from this point on, every inch that you advance is going to cost you a lot, and it's going to increase the backlash. And it's sort of like how to put it? You have this elastic band that you've pulled as much as you can, and now it's just going to swing back with great force, and you're just holding it in place. Really, you'll have a very hard time stretching it if any further at this point. So I don't think this is going to work for them. I really don't. Like I said, I have zero faith that the people who are in charge of diversity are going to suddenly stop doing diversity. And when I say diversity, obviously I mean the whole racist programs. It's not real diversity. Honestly, I think people would have been far more agreeable to actual efforts to create diversity, even though I don't see it necessarily as an inherently good thing. Elon Musk recently posted something about how if you create a mishmash of all cultures and races, in every European country, you're literally just going to destroy the inherent culture and feel of the country, which will create less diversity because you'll have this same hodgepodge everywhere. And you'll basically take away from the world the sort of unique cultures that used to populate it. I very much agree with this idea. I think that just like China should remain Chinese, and Indonesia and Pakistan should also retain their own culture and inherent populace and feel, the same should be true for London and Paris. It shouldn't be any different. And the people who want to create some sort of global mishmash, in specifically only in white European countries, are not only against diversity, they are specifically racist against these white cultures that they want to effectively destroy and colonize with this global village kind of program they have. So they're doubly bad, in my opinion. Is this going to change the landscape of corporations and media? We'll have to wait and see. Thanks for watching, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.